Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in South Downs and others of you living in the future. And welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Cal. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, painting the Meridian Cross, painting the Argent Comet, painting the Pilgrim Star, painting the Palmer's Lantern, Vendor of the West, and Reaper. Coming to you live from the southwest outpost of the Barony of South Downs here on the beautiful southern coast of Meridies. Now, joining me today, I have a duo of ferocity. From the northern reaches of An Tir, and I mean, good God, the northern reaches of An Tir, I would like to welcome the two of the progenitors of the GirlSquad, Her Ladyship Astrid of the Wolfpack, and Lady Katherine of Clan Cunningham. Good morning, my friends.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we coming from Rivendell this morning?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that it was Prince George, BC, but
it doesn't quite look like this.
We're cool, but we're not quite this cool, so it's there. Ladies, if you will please introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, where you're from, and why you are in fact awesome.
I can go first, I guess. So my real name is Katie, and in the SCA, I am called Katherine or Katie because I'm really creative with names. From Prince George, BC, the Shire of Coldkeep, in the Principality of Tir, in the Kingdom of An Tir. I've been fighting for, I guess, probably 4 years now. We were just talking about how long it's been because COVID sort of puts a little bit of a black hole in in timelines of things. I've been heavy fighting for 4 years. In real life, I'm an environmental scientist. I do heavy fighting, and we were just talking backstage before the show. I also do roller derby. So those are my two big hobbies.
Which I've been told that rapier fighting and heavy fighting, melee specifically, is a lot like roller derbies.
I don't know, any sort of like sport, athletic endeavor. I mean, they all sort of lend themselves to other things. So
the current princeps of Artemisia is also a roller derby enthusiast, and started rapier fighting at Pennsic this year, and was like, Cal, rapier fighting melees is just like roller derby with sticks. It's the best thing ever. I was like, awesome. So they were super excited about that.
That's great.
Astrid, tell us about you.
Well, I'm Astrid. I am also part of kind of Prince George unceded territory of the Collective Native People. We should acknowledge where we are. I originally moved from Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, which is the northern part of Mexico, to Canada about 10 years ago. So Prince George have been my home, and I don't know what to say. I guess
Astrid's the seneschal of the Shire of Coldkeep.
That's very true.
She does so many jobs in our Shire and our society. She's always busy helping, trying to make things better and more enjoyable for everybody.
That's a better introduction than I would think of. Thank you. Yes.
She likes to underplay herself, but she really she does a lot for us. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Like Astrid's like, and this is my hype man, Katie.
Yeah. You know what?
She actually doesn't need one, because for anybody who's met Astrid, she doesn't need a hype man, because and anybody who has seen her like helping out with things in the Shire and the Kingdom and events and stuff, like they see how hard she's working at all this. I'm the lazy one. I'm the one who's just there for heavy fighting and having a good time. But Astrid does a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it takes all kinds. I love that. So because Astrid is the seneschal, we're going to throw this up real quick. The views and anything expressed here on the show are those of the participants and not reflect any official policy or position of SCA Incorporated or the kingdoms or shires we are part of. So don't sue us. Don't sue the SCA, please. I mean, sue the SCA for other reasons, but not because of us.
Yeah, not us.
If you have reason to sue the SCA, more power to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now the introductions are out of the way, this show is, of course, coffee themed. So let's talk about our beans right quick. So today's coffee for me is a little bit big business, which I try to shy away from. It's hard to do that. But it's from Dunkin' Donuts.
Nice.
At least, the coffee beans. We don't have a Dunkin' around here. I think we do. I don't do it to go there. But it's important because it's called Turtle Love, which I chuckled at. I won't lie. But it's a dark roast with caramel, and I'm a fan. So
Yeah, sounds
Ooh.
delicious.
The more important part, I think, though, is of course my lovely cup made
Yeah.
by Grimm, gifted to me by the Queen of An Tir when I visited out there. So I thought it was an appropriate choice from today.
Prep it,
Wow,
a proper
all
cup
right.
for the right kingdom. Nice.
Well, when I got here, I was drinking Starbucks, and Astrid was like, we can't do that, because she got this fancy coffee maker. So she went and made me a coffee. But my mug, can we see? Oh, I don't know. Oh, no. It's Frida Kahlo. I guess you can't really see.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
Frida Kahlo mug. It's huge, which is great for coffee. It's what's the coffee in here? It's like it has like a pumpkin spice, frothy milk kind of cream that's
Caramel,
super
like
delicious. It's really sweet, but I'm feeling it for a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Astrid, what you got over there? Tell us about your cup. It's fancy.
It's actually just the same coffee that she's having.
Right.
Astrid has a great cup. I don't know. Can we like put it close to the camera? Will that work?
Wait.
Oh no.
Hold on. You have to kill the background or put it.
Oh,
there you go. Put it in the face. Yeah.
It does have an uterus in it, and
It's a little uterus that's giving the finger.
Yeah.
Nice. I will admit, because of the Girl Squad topic, my I Descent cup with the uterus flipping off was my other choice for the day. That was I waffled. I won't lie.
Yeah.
It would have been an appropriate one.
For the local artist in Nanaimo that my sister-in-law sent me, so I was like, yeah, support local.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was like, I went through cups because we got back Penzic, so I was like, I've got new cups now, but all of them are very tiny. So because we got stuff from Lobster Rose, but it's like one has dicks on it, one has vulvas on it. I was like, these are amazing cups, but they're very small cups, and I'm a big dude. I drink a lot of coffee, so like I needed a large cup. So which I love this cup and how big it is, but it has the tiniest damn handle ever.
Yeah.
It's the only. I'm like, it's so teeny tiny, so I can't carry it at events because it's just so small. But it's great for at home.
I actually I took a pottery class and I was making mugs and stuff, and it is incredibly difficult to get a handle that is just exactly the right size. You know, like it's so easy to make them too small or too big.
You got to have tiny hands.
You have to have tiny hands.
Are you a lobster?
No, I literally have tiny hands. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, as we talked about before the show a little bit, your feet aren't touching the ground currently, right? I just want to bring that up to the internet.
I'm going to tell everybody.
Wow. Way to call me out on there. All right, people who are watching, thank you for noticing the fact that I'm very short. I'm 4'8", 4'10". The way that I introduced myself to Katie when we first met, it was like, I'm 5 feet. Run it up. And then I later figured out that I was actually 4'10".
Yeah.
So my chair is a gateway chair, and I had to I was very low, and we bump it up, and now I can't touch the ground. So she has to roll me in and out of.
Yeah, but we were wondering why she was so low, and then I realized her chair was just like really low so that her feet could touch the ground. So we put it up, but now when I have to pull her close because her feet are literally dangling on the ground.
Oh, I couldn't let that go. I had to bring it up as the gargantuan over here.
Good call. That's how you know who your friends are.
Your real friends pick on you. That's how this works. That's the love of the SCA. All right. So if you're out there watching, please let us know in the comments, in the chat, or whatever. I'm just going to point places. And if you're on Facebook, thank you for tuning in, and apologies for the bork at the start. For some reason, Facebook decided not to have me streaming for a few minutes there, so I had to fix that really quick. It should be working now. I'm seeing comments coming from Facebook, so I guess it is working. So let us know you're out there watching. And if you have questions for our lovely guests during the show today about their topic, drop them in the chat. We'd love to have you. We'd love to talk to you and answer your questions while we go. So speaking of the topic, let's dive into that. So hashtag GirlSquad.
Yeah,
that's a whole thing. So I've had some gender minority fighters on, and there's been topics about the thing. What are you guys doing with it? Like, I know, especially you talked a little bit before the show about being in a very remote area.
Yeah,
sort of, you're definitely removed from a lot of us in the SCA.
Yeah.
So what is GirlSquad? What are you doing? Sort of, why did it start? Give me the starter.
I was just thinking about this yesterday because I knew we were doing this today, and trying to just remember all the pieces of the story. It kind of started. So I started heavy fighting, like I said, about 4 years ago. at the time, there was 2 other guys who were sort of teaching most people, especially in the summer, Ilya and Minsky. So shout out to Ilya and Minsky. 2 young guys. They had just started fighting, I think a couple of months before I had started. So I started fighting with them, and that's when I met Astrid as well. We were fighting, like we were doing heavy fighting practice in a park in the summer, and Astrid was kind of walking by with her friend. And I had just learned how to throw a shot like the week before. And these 2 guys were like, okay, you know what you're doing. Teach this person. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. But, and I think probably because we're both women, because we both didn't really know what we were doing, but we both like had a passion for doing heavy fighting, we just sort of instantly started to bond. So we were doing heavy fighting practice together. We were really into it. The 2 guys, they called themselves the Goon Squad. And because of maybe
they're brothers, so they're like,
brothers, the Goon Squad. And so we were like, oh, we'll call ourselves the Girl Squad, Goon Squad, Girl Squad. And we hung out with them a lot and stuff. So it sort of started like that, kind of didn't really have that much to do with maybe being a woman and a heavy fighter. But I think it's for me first, and then for Astrid after, once you're in the heavy fighting community, unfortunately you see some of the parts of it that aren't positive. And out of that, those personal experiences and experiences that other people we had talked to who are women, trans, non-binary, like the experiences that they had, I saw a real
it's sort of like a mutual bonding around those.
Yeah, it kind of came out of like a frustration about some of these things, and like, how can we change those things? Like when you start heavy fighting, for me, what was really eye-opening was, okay, I'm a heavy fighter. This is so great. I'm an A-type personality and very goal-oriented. What are my goals? Like, what is the thing? How do I get the prize? Like, what's the Olympics of heavy fighting? Okay, well, you can win a kingdom tournament.
I was like crown list in knighthood. Yeah. That's the 2. Yeah.
Well, and we have principality as well, so coronet.
Sure. Yeah.
So, okay, king or queen. How many queens of An Tir have there been by their own hand? Oh, okay, not that many. How about princess? Is that a thing that happens very often? Also,
not
very many. Okay, cool. I could be a knight. That would be sweet. Oh, how many female knights are there compared to male knights? Oh, okay. There's it becomes more and more discouraging kind of as you get into it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was like a real need to want, and it still is, just to want more gender minorities, women, trans and non-binary people to do heavy fighting, to enjoy it, to feel supported. And so it sort of turned into, it shifted from just like sort of a fun thing that we were talking about to like something that is and continues to be the most important thing for me in the SCA is just getting more people to feel comfortable calling themselves fighters, being seen as equals who are not men.
Yeah, admittedly, it is a very, speaking as the men in the room, it's a very masculine dominated sport, and it's unfortunate. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that just genetically that I'm going to be better at than, granted, I'm also 6'3" and you guys are not. So like, I get it. There's some things I'm going to be better at just because of my size.
Sure.
So I can see that, but it's like, also there's some things I've seen people do that are smaller or differently bodied that I can't do. So I think there's a balance there. We just don't focus on that enough.
Yeah. I think it also, it's kind of, this is a hard topic because it can be a little bit contentious, but I think that we just have to acknowledge that, when we build a fake world that men have the power in, and that men then get to decide, like, this is something that I brought up before and we don't love to talk about it always. But who gets to decide who gets to be a knight? Other knights. And if other knights are all men, this is the definition of a patriarchal society. And I'm not saying definitely this is not the case. I know this is not true, but I'm not saying that, the Knights Council are a bunch of men going, how can we get other men to be knights? But there are things like unconscious bias that we have to acknowledge that exist. And what are we as a society actively doing to like break down some of those things?
I think between the dream of like having all these virtuals and having all this dream of a game, this is just a representation of what society outside the game looks like. And it's just a highlighted in a smaller community to what those issues happen outside and inside the game, right? Like, and not just thinking about purchase, but like the overall problems that we will encounter in and out, right? I think one of the things that I kind of always go back to our history was about the encouraging part of one another, like how we started. It was about just getting that name for us to just continue coming to practice, right? Like, how do we encourage each other to just show up? Well, now we say we're gonna beat these guys up. We need to show up to actually beat them up.
Yeah.
But then it kind of snowballed from there. We started going that like I remember like, oh, let's come up with a logo and let's make a T-shirt from ourselves. And like so, Katie contacted a designer. We're like, okay, let's get the logo. We probably started like summer, and then by November, Coronet, which is the Principality Winter Championship, we are our first tournament official fights, which is like now we are authorized, we can actually do this. Why don't we go to a Coronet to start our first official fight? Yeah. It's like, oh, let's go hard, and we got this. Right?
Yeah, spoiler alert, we didn't win.
Apparently you cannot just jump from like summer to winter and win a tournament. But I think it was
in fact, the two of you had a better chance of winning than I did at that point, because I was not in the tournament. So you at least were
enter the
That's right. You're doing better.
Yeah. So we decided to enter. So we traveled. We had to travel from Prince George, which is 9 to 10 hours driving south. So that's another always like when we're trying to perspective of what it takes to actually put yourself forward. We had to travel to a longer distance, right? Prepare ourselves, get our armor up, which we got support from our community to be able to wear something that will fit us enough to get ourselves out there, which always the challenge when you live in the north too, like getting proper fit or getting something that will resemble to an armor that you can actually be safe enough to play. So we got to Coronet, and we made stickers, like just paper sticker that had like our logo and had like the thing. We decided like, oh, it would be nice if we get to fight in the tournament, and then afterwards just connect with people and give them that sticker to say, hey, thanks so much for fighting me. I had a lot of fun. Here it is, like a logo that just to say, to remember us, to say this is how much fun we had, right? And out of that experience, like I had told other shows, and I often don't talk about it much, but I think it's good to remember like that I had a really bad experience about somebody telling me that I shouldn't be on the list and I shouldn't be on the tournament, and I should just become like a kind of like a consort to somebody, to just be like his lady, and then be like all these things that I'm like, I'm just having fun, and somebody's just gonna rain on my parade. Okay, cool. Right. So I give the sticker and I walk away, and then on my way, all the night hours back home was like, wow, this sucks. This is my first tournament. This is what, and if this is happening, that means that other people had experiences, right? Like that have walked away from the field, or that have not feel included, or have not feel like they belong, or they have feel like they don't have a place in the field afterwards, right? So just like spiteful and myself, like those kind of behaviors happen. And I think that validation of those things to say, well, maybe it didn't happen on your journey, maybe it didn't happen to you, but other people are still experiencing it. How can we continue being put ourselves forward every single time? And I think that does representation matter, has made a difference. We had got to meet female knights who we have had that conversation about, like, well, where you are at, like even just after knighthood, right? Once you get the belt, what happens afterwards? What happens when your journey is there, or the process of? And there has been, I think that has grown more than ever thought that we will grow, right? Like people find the GirlSquad logo, or found this like group to be more something that they can stand with. and that they can take part of.
Yeah, I
so
think
belonging in that.
exactly. I
sensation.
think that for us really is like the biggest focus is on sort of camaraderie and feeling like you belong. This is like, well, that's, yeah, I can't speak for you, I guess, but like for me, that this is the most important thing is just like showing people that, yeah, there is a place for you. And one thing we've been doing is trying to encourage, and in theory, we've been doing this quite a bit, is that every tournament or war, we also have an Iron Rose tournament. So Iron Rose tournament is just for women, trans, and non-binary people. It's just a fighting tournament. Generally, there's not that many participants. Sometimes we've had 3. But even when there's only 3, it's really important for us to still have it. So we'll have it like after or before Squires tournament. The format is kind of whatever we're sort of feeling on the day, generally like a whatever, 2 15-minute, 20-minute halves, and then we'll determine, finals, I guess. We sort of do it in a different way where the participants of the tournament decide who the 2 are that are going to go to the finals. And usually there's a prize at the end. But the idea is that for people who maybe are uncomfortable fighting in, I don't know, like a Squires tournament or, I don't know, Cornet, that there's a place for them, like a belonging. You get to fight with other women, trans, and non-binary people.
It builds a community and camaraderie between us,
Yes.
like to understand who they are,
Yeah.
and then at what level does it feel like comfortable for you to just continue being part of that game, right? Like continue having that experience of a tournament style without having the pressure to like feel like there is like not understanding where at what level of style you should be fighting, right? Like just a free for all.
I mean, it's essentially a stepping stone. It's similar to what they do with like the Grapeau or the Field of Honor. It's the smaller version to get you the exposure to what that feels like day of. So you're like, oh, that's not as scary as you thought it was, right? That's the idea. You're still in front of people, but it's a smaller pool essentially.
Yeah, and we also do, so like one thing that came up in the last Iron Rose that we had that I thought it just really stuck out to me, and I thought it was a really good way to explain why these things are so important. So we're at the end, and like I said, the participants decide who the finalists are. So nobody else, we don't do wins necessarily. Somebody was like, oh, well, let's just do it like on who has the most wins. Right. And then somebody else said, well, for some of us, this might be the only thing that we win, and that's not something that all men have to think about, it's sort of, it was really poignant to me. And I'm like, yeah, that is true. So maybe instead of based on wins, which is maybe one could argue a more patriarchal version of this kind of tournament, maybe we should do it on something else. And so at that tournament, we decided to go on chivalry, and we all sort of nominated somebody to say, I think this person was the most chivalric. Often in our Iron Rose tournaments, the person who is in the final is often the person with the least fighting experience, which I think is great. I don't think the goal here is not to like win every single Iron Rose tournament and be like the best Iron Rose fighter ever. The point is community and camaraderie and
share the feel
and getting more people who are not men to be fighters and to say, you have a place here.
Right. That's the concept of that I think is amazing. It's one of the things I talked to Sir Fergus a lot out of Atlantia, formerly of the West, and whenever he asked me the other day after Squire tourney, he goes, Cal, how'd you do? I was like, well, I won this one and won. He goes, I don't care about that. How did you do?
Yeah.
How did you feel? And I was like, oh shit, you're right. Hold on, let me think about it. So I think that thought of that is the body count doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? It's how did you fight? How did you feel?
The notion and competitiveness to things, right? Like how, like, am I winning? Am I hitting hard enough? And that culture of like hitting hard means winning more, or like technique and all these things that are variables, things that new fighters don't get to. You don't have proper techniques. I don't think I can even throw a shot properly still, right? Like those are the things that sometimes it's a little bit challenging when you're high caliber. When you're a Squire tournament, you want to showcase your sportsmanship. You want to be like, you want to make winning, right? Like all these things that as a new fighter, well, I'm not there yet, right? Like, but I can try to do something that I feel comfortable and I can build that community more. So, yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead, Astrid.
I was just gonna say, like, I think Her Highness Bernadette and His Highness Argyle have also like encouraged this to continue happening at every event. So just having peer support does matter when it comes to those things, because we want like things don't happen when somebody say, hey, we're gonna do this, right? You want more people.
I said we are trying to encourage it, but it's not us who are making these Iron Rose tournaments happen, right? Like you need support from people who are in positions of power. Just so it happens that our current prince and princess have made this a priority.
Yeah.
And if you don't make it a priority, it's not happening.
Cuff. Everybody, sign up. Do it.
If you're in An Tir and you're sure, you sign up for that. That's actually it's a really neat concept, and I like things like that. And I'll compare it to some other things, like the Field of Roses that the West does that now they're not doing Atlantia. Different concept, right? And it isn't restricted, but it's all about building the chivalry, building the concept of fighting without the pressure of that highbrow tournament, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you this, for the two of you who've sort of now fought in both, is there a difference? Do you feel like you are diminishing yourselves at all by doing that, by sort of fighting in, I'm going to call it a lower level tournament here, not what I mean, but is there a diminishment there, or do you really feel like it actually is for building?
I think it is it's for something else, like those higher level tournaments. I'm struggling a little bit because they're just for different things. Like an Iron Rose tournament is for camaraderie. It's for meeting other people, women, non-binary and trans people, who do this thing, who, where we are, because we're fairly far north in Tir, there aren't that many people like us doing heavy fighting. So we don't get to meet and connect with those people very often. The tournament is just for a completely different purpose. The crown coronets, like the competitive tournaments are for showcasing and testing yourself, your physical ability, your technique, like all the things that you've learned, like that, things are leading up to that in a competitive way. This is there might be a competitive aspect to it, but for me, it serves a totally different purpose. And actually, for me, I would say that I prioritize this type of tournament over other types of tournaments, because it's so important for me that that people feel included and supported. I would rather fight a person who's been I would rather fight, a non-binary person who's been fighting for 3 months than to necessarily go into like a coronet tournament and showcase myself. I think some of that comes from sort of a frustration about, how difficult I perceive it to be a knight. I started off this journey wanting to be a knight so badly, and then seeing some parts of the peerage and the society that were really discouraging, and completely flipped and said, I never want to be a squire. I never want to be a knight. I would rather do this than go down that path, which now I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not so, angry, I guess, about some of the things.
I think angry is a good phrase. Rightfully so.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of in the middle now, but for me, I just want to prioritize my own fighting ability and like working hard. I love working hard and learning new things. So that for me, and then the other part that's so important is just encouraging more people.
I would say, like, I think like we're getting this wrong, because doesn't mean because we're on this one we're not bringing our A game into the tournament. I think like because this is all levels, right? Like you have fighters who are new, and you have fighters who are squires currently, who are following the path, who are like they're bringing their A game. I think that doesn't discourage people to bring their A game. This is just like I guess like at the end of a coronet, you become a prince or princess, right? So there is a price attachment to it that is a responsibility to, and those are great. Like those things are good. This is more about like how can we ensure that we have all the opportunity to find one another, build those connections to say, hey, I'm struggling with the same thing that you're struggling. My boobs are on the way, my stamina is on the way, like my mental game is on the way, but this is where we share this field together and we say, you know what, I'm Astrid, I live so far away, can we keep in touch for this, right? Like building those connections to ensure that they feel like everybody feels that they can be heard, and also like not leveling the field in that sense. I think that that's it's not diminishing the capabilities of all my opponents, right? I will always bring my best game forward. But I think it takes away the pressure of holding a coronet, holding a crown, holding all these different titles that like sometimes that builds a restriction, right? Like for being able to develop those. In a tournament, in a coronet tournament, I have to fight, and then I don't get a chance to like afterwards connect with these people, right? Like I don't. Well, I try to, but you know that those timing, we don't give enough time for like even when we were fighting, you don't get the whole give me 3 seconds to breathe, and you don't get that time. And we want to make sure that in this format we get those times to like, yeah, you know what, I don't have the condition to hold my shield because I don't have a proper shield, but let's talk about that afterwards, and then we can figure out what actually could be modified, and not removing any barriers that could stop that conversation from happening, I guess. Yeah,
I think it's a really good way to put that. It's the focus is definitely different, and you know, without the pressure of the fancy hat at the end of the day, you can focus on those things. You're not, because your opponent is not then moving on to the next fight. I think that's important. A really good point from Ducky here. Sounds like you guys are putting the B into DEIB, so belonging there being a word we've used a couple times, and I like that. And of course, Skelt says GirlSquad rules.
Yeah, that's another. We actually, do you know that history point? Fun fact.
Oh no, go, please.
Koki used to belong to Avocado.
That's right.
So yeah.
It's one of the border towns there that gets shifted back and forth.
It was part of Abacal, and then now we're Tir.
Voting happened, and
which makes sense in real life provincial lines.
Yeah, provincial lines. Yeah, I would always have like Alberta, Saskatchewan, and we have.
I think Meridius has like one county in Kentucky because of where the mountain falls or something. So there's like, we have one zip code in Kentucky because we're on this side of the mountains. It would take them multiple hours. I mean, I know multiple hours is nothing for you guys, but multiple hours to get across the mountain versus like 10 minutes to get to us. So it makes sense sometimes.
Yeah, where we are geographically, it's kind of, we are like in the real world. We're, 8-9 hours from Vancouver. We're like 7 to 8 hours from Edmonton in Alberta. So we're kind of like
in the middle.
Yeah, we're sort of in the middle.
So.
I had a joke. I sent my Avocalian friends a picture of the sign from Pinzik with the distances to all the kingdoms. And they're like, Cal, there's a couple problems here. First of all, we don't measure anything in miles because it's all measured in miles because we're in the U.S. And he said, secondly, even if we did measure in kilometers, that's also wrong. We measure in hours. Everything Canada's measured in hours.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
So that's fair. Because I always ask like Maeve or Scales, like, how far is that then? They're like, 34 hours. I was like, miles, guys. Give me a distance here. Like, I need to. No, they're like, no, it doesn't matter. Fair. All right, so I want to dive in a little bit to. First of all, I'm sitting here pondering on that whole Iron Rose thing, and like I know Keese is in the other room, and I'm just going to make sure I want to help her do this because she hates tournament fighting. She's done war fighting, but she's like, tournaments are stupid for a lot of the same reasons you've been.
Nice, yeah.
Good, thanks. I'm like, I want to help her do this now. Like, I'm like, because I don't need to be the one doing that, but like, I can help her do that all day long. So I have some ideas. We'll talk later.
Nice.
I want to sort of dial back to the start of your fighting, right? And because I know, because I've seen some of it with her starting fighting, and some of the stuff she's dealt with, the armor not fitting right. So, what have you guys done with like loaner gear? Right? How do you help people get into new armor? Like, what's sort of your process on doing that safely, but also comfortably? Because I know none of what's going to fit me is going to fit y'all, and vice versa.
Yeah, I guess I should say we are pretty privileged in that we do have a very well established university medieval club. It's not technically SCA, but of course it's like related.
We
so
get young blood.
we have a couple of things that are I want to acknowledge a privilege on. So we have a pre-established university club that was there long before Astrid and I started fighting. We have lots of loner gear that has been built up over 30 years of that medieval club being there. We have had female fighters in our medieval club before Astrid and I. We're not the first two female fighters. There is a well-established household here that Astrid and I are part of. You said earlier, the Wolf Pack, representing the Wolf Pack, which also has female fighters and has a strong focus on heavy fighting that started in our shire as well. So we do have a large amount of loner gear armor. We should also acknowledge that we have a knight. He's the Prince of Tir. He also happens to be my partner in real life. So that's a privilege that I think needs to be acknowledged because he has a garage. Yep, Wolfpack for life. That's actually him.
I assumed as much there.
Yeah. So, he has a garage. He has many years of experience building armor.
He's a hoarder of all the materials, I think.
Like many SCA people, he's a hoarder of medieval materials, and he has the knowledge and background to be able to help people, including people who have a non-typical body type, get into armor. So, our answer to this question is probably going to be a little bit different than somebody who is in a place that doesn't
more
have
remote
those or doesn't have any of those things, So for us, because we're fighting, representation matters. We have lots of other people fighting who are not men. Some of them say, some of them don't, but we are able to get them into armor faster than maybe some other places. Just because of the large amount of gear that we have and the support of Sir Argyle. Yeah, for sure. For me, my personal experience was not sort of loving how the armor was fitting anyway. I mean, and we've had this discussion before, loner gear kind of always sucks. It's not just for women that it sucks.
Right. It's a little bit supposed to, honestly.
Yeah, really. So, and of course I didn't like that very much. I'm pretty good at picking up like sort of crafty kind of skills. So I ended up making myself like a full hardened leather lamellar kind of upper body thing. I have struggled for I'm on my 7th pair of legs. I always struggle with legs. I still have not found really good legs yet that I like, that I can move in. But for myself, I also again want to acknowledge the privilege of I have a good job where I get paid well enough that I can buy leather, that I have a house that I can build this stuff in. Other people do not have that kind of privilege. So for me, I think I had a pretty easy ride on the armor side of things, but that's definitely not the case for everybody.
Yeah. Mine was hand-me-down by my Pelican Laurel, who used to fight way back then. So I just kind of modify it to fit me. But I'm also like a SpongeBob SquarePants, like it's just like a square and it's short. But I think having a support community to be able to modify those things and kind of adjust it and figure out But I have also reached out Duchess and
Antigone.
Antigone, yes. And Sir Helga also have put out some patterns to I think we're in continuous getting modifications and figure out what exactly will fit. Just I think open up the broader conversation about there is patterns out there and there is a help out there that those who are watching who are thinking about joining, this is a good opportunity for you to reach out, try to find those patterns, because then there's people who have been fighting way longer than us that probably could help you sort it out a little bit more what will work for you, right?
There's also on Facebook, I think it's Gender Minority Fighters.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's a group of gender minority fighters. I post on there sometimes when I'm I can't find legs that work. What do you guys do? And it's a pretty active community. There's lots of people. It's
is it Women and Gender Minority Fighters dash SCA unofficial?
Yeah, Women and Gender Minority Fighters. So it's just a Facebook group. And
actually, if you drop the link to me in the chat for us, I'll share it out to the page.
Yeah, and that's a really good resource. People talk about not just armor, all sorts of things that affect gender minority fighters more than other people, and strategies for how to deal with those things. So yeah.
So okay, I'm going to talk from my side. A question. So what can I do? Right? What can we do to help you guys? And it sounds like representation is the thing in that knowledge sharing. So like, I am not you. I don't have your problems, but I can know you, and share the resources when I find them. So I think that's for me what I would challenge the other giant male fighters out there to do is have those resources available. So when somebody shows up who fits the bill, so to speak, know where to send them. What else can we do in that realm?
Well, actually, so I was just looking this up. Maybe I don't know, we could probably put a link or something. Sir Rifkin had put together a list of like 10 things you can do to make fight practice a better learning environment for gender minorities. And so there's 10 things on this list, and I think it's a really good resource for some things that we can do to make fight practice more inclusive, I think, for gender minorities.
I'm gonna send you the link so we can.
Yeah, drop me the link.
Yeah, it's just.
I do love me some Rifkin. She's good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, we are.
Yes.
In love.
We're in love. We're starstruck. So the first one is making practice spaces safe and comfortable. So that's not just around like how you teach fight practice. That's also, there's things on here like being close to parking, well lit, having bathrooms that you can change in, like making this space with keeping in mind that women are coming into this space to fight, but then they have to leave the space. How do we make it safe? This is the safe part of it. And those are things, I love this one as a first one because we're not thinking like, oh, this isn't really SCA. This is just in general.
Right.
Like, how do you make the space, comfortable for people? And if you have to leave fight practice and then walk to your car that's far away and it's really dark and you live in a place that you don't feel safe already, what Astrid said is true. We're taking the real world. We need to take the real world problems that we have into account, and walking down a dark street at night is like not always something that women are comfortable doing.
It's the same conversation we have when we look at sites for accessibility for wheelchair users. Yeah. It's the same conversation. Is we have to look at those things from, I don't have those problems, so I can't see them necessarily.
Yeah.
I've got to see the problems that are there, right?
Yeah. Why don't we have more people who are in wheelchairs participating in this thing? Oh, well, it's not wheelchair accessible. So of course we don't. So that was the first one. Maybe I won't go through the whole list, but I'll pick ones that I kind of really speak to me. The structure of practice. Mm-hmm. This is something that we have gone through in our fighting community as well. And then there's another one in here that says get rid of pain as a teacher, which is kind of related. I think that when we first started fighting, our fight practice was structured in a way that was kind of like put on your armor and just fight each other. Right. And we did drills sometimes. Like, I don't want to diminish the structure of the practice. And also our practice has produced good fighters. So obviously there's, some merit to that practice structure. But for me and Astrid, especially, that was not working. We needed to warm up. We needed to do drills. We needed to practice those drills in like a slow motion environment. And then we needed sparring. This was a way to make it I don't know, more comfortable and inclusive for us, I think.
I had a good conversation with his highness when I was in that moment of like, why am I not going to practice? What is like stopping me from actually showing up? And you think about the mental game, but also like the structure of a practice. And then I was thinking to myself, and I did share with him about like my own struggles of not having a structured practice or figure out how he was able to support me. And I think that also the accountability on us about like, well, okay, there is this guy who has been fighting for so many years, and he has a way to fight, and understanding that sometimes that school needs to also, we need to have the accountability also on us to like building up to what we need, right? Like speak about what you need and how can we support it. And Katie suggested like, why don't we change it around, and then we all get to decide what is going to be happening and how do we do the next drill, how to like structurize it in a way that we can all support to build a practice, not to just leave it to somebody who is very experienced, who probably is like, what am I missing here, right? But having the opportunity for us to get what we needed out of it too, right? What is the other thing that I was going to mention? The pain, remove pain of teaching. And this is before us, right? Like those have like hit harder because it doesn't, you're not doing it right. Like you need to do it more harder and harder. It's like, yeah, you're doing to a bear pit, which is like one stays in and you keep fighting and keep fighting. I am not going to learn. Like if you keep hitting me on that leg, that's not gonna happen, right? Like,
yeah. You're not going to instantly learn how to block amazingly. I mean, some people will, I guess, if you just keep getting hit in the same place. I'm just probably going to stop fighting and maybe I'll cry.
Right. First of all, same. That's what I do too. So, that is not a girl thing. That is, I will cry too. Please don't hit me anymore.
The crying thing is a real thing, though. It's like when I first started fighting, I just personally, I have historically fallen into a trap of thinking that things that men do are better. So, like, I've played lots of sports. I love playing sports. I want to play with men because unconsciously I think that that is better than fighting with women or playing roller derby or whatever. And I think this is something that is more common than we might think. And part of that is that I do not like to cry and I like to be tough. That is very important to me. Do not like to be seen as weak. That is something that I really struggle with. And when I first started fighting, I would just cry and everything was fine. I have no problem hitting somebody. I have no problem getting hit at all. I play lots of physical sports that are full contact. And this has never happened to me before where I just like start to cry and I don't know, I'm not really sure why it's happening. And that's something I think it is more common, it seems, for women than it is for men, just a different adrenaline response. I don't want to speak to it too much. I'm not an expert in adrenaline cycles and stuff. Other people know a lot more about it. Astrid knows more about it than I do. All I know is my personal experience that I cry when I fight. And that was a real struggle. And really
normalizing that to yourself and normalize it to others, another journey.
Well, this is the next part I wanted to talk about, was communication and just, me being able to communicate. I'm crying. It's not you. You didn't do anything wrong. I just need a minute. And then for me to be able to go, okay, I'm okay. Crying's fine. Doesn't matter. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to come back and start fighting again. And for fighters who don't have this, for them to know that this is a thing that happens and then not sort of overreact to that thing and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Did I hurt you? You didn't hurt me. I'm fine. So the communication piece, I think, is so important. There's some other communication stuff on here that the list that Sir Riff can put together that I think are important. And I just wanted to mention using gender neutral pronouns. So like fighters, combatants, they, them, can be really helpful. I've had some scenarios where people have sort of said like men, the boys, the guy, whatever. It's like, oh, well, what about me? Am I actually part of this, or am I doing something else? So I love the terms like fighters and combatants are really good. Even using terms like, instead of prince and princess, like coronets, I think that's really important, because instantly we say, oh, well, the prince is more important because he's the one that won the tournament. It's like just coronets, sort of making everybody seem like using language that makes people more equal.
Yeah, that's why I was happy when I saw Helga and Hans when they did Princess and Prince Consort.
Yeah,
So acknowledged the male title of Prince with him,
right.
but also tagged the consort on so it was obvious who won the tournament.
Yeah.
I like the way they did that.
Yeah, that's really good. I like using, um, yeah, Argyle and Bernadette have been using cornets, like the cornets of Thierry, which I think is really good.
Which is also just an accurate title, frankly.
Really,
it's just correct. Yeah,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that piece is really important for me to mention. So because I've definitely felt like, okay, well, I guess I'm just like I'm not part of this group.
Yeah.
And I've got the list pulled up over here, and this is like I'm going to remove the gender minorities from this. Is just a good list for fighter practice, frankly.
Oh, really?
Like,
yeah.
Yes, there's some stuff that's more important to gender minorities than it would be to me.
Yeah.
But this is just a good list. So I put the link in the chat, but also it's out on the GirlSquad page, which is in the description as well. So that's just a good. It's funny to me. I was thinking back through my fighter practices, and the fighter practices that I've been to that have been ran by female fighters or gender minority fighters have been structured, whereas the ones I go to that are just ran by one of the guys aren't. And I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's funny that it's happened that way every time. And maybe that's something we should all look at, because I tend to like those practices better. I don't go to practices where we're just showing up to fight. It's not fun for me.
Yeah.
The couple that I went to that I can think about, that you talked about communication, I think that's a really key factor here too. One of the fighters, Inigo, from over in Louisiana area, when we fought at fighter practice, he goes, "Hey, what do you want to work on today?" Was the first question he asked. Before we fought, what do you want to work on? I'm like, "Oh shit, hold on, let me." I had to stop and think about why am I here. And he, I was fighting Madu, and he had a glaive. I was like, "Man, I suck against glaive fighters." He goes, "All right, let me grab that." So he picked it, so gauntlet out, and we talked about glaive fighting and how I was going to fight against that, right? I think he's a squire going on the knighthood path. I think from a knighthood path, that's something to look at, is how do you communicate your fighting? How do you teach? How do you work through that? That isn't just hit me harder until I learn it, right? I think that's critical.
Totally.
We had a good conversation on our last event with Sir Eldon, and he asked us the same question. We always get this question, and we always have a different answer. But I think that I was like, what can I do to make these things different and all these things? It's like, that's a great question. But you can ask us that question many times, and we will answer differently. We will keep adding things, and there's always things changing. But I think the question is to bring back to your own community. What can I do better? What can I change to make things more inclusive? What am I not doing currently? Who is not on part of that council? Who's not part of that table, right? Like,
how many female fighters do we have?
Do you have?
What does my fight practice look like? Do I need to change anything? I think, and like to add to that, just thinking, especially if you are a heavy fighter and you are a man and you are in a position of power, what can I do? And not just ask us, but what I want to look internally at myself and see what changes I can make. Like, let me take a critical look on myself and go, yes, I'm doing this, this, and this, but you know what? I probably could do this or this. And maybe that's going to be more work for me. Or maybe I'm going to have to change fight practice, and I don't want to do that. Because if you've been doing fight practice for a long time, multiple decades in a certain way, why would you want to do that? This is the whole point of like a patriarchal structure in society. If you are already in a position of power, and that society has benefited you,
because it works for you.
If you're a man and you're a knight, it has worked for you,
right?
Because you got the thing. You are the thing. If you're a king, if you're a prince, this society structure has worked for you. So why would you want to change that? It is a difficult thing. It's like you've already benefited from this society and this structure. So why would you look at that and go, I'm going to change everything about this? It's difficult, but it's something. That's why I'm saying we just need to be critical of ourselves and go, like, what can we do to make this better? I might need to change something that I don't want to change.
Yeah.
And that can be really, I have total sympathy on that. That can be a very difficult thing to do. But like looking at the resources like we just posted, like, here's 10 things that you can do. And you can look at those 10 things and go, can I do any of those things better?
Every step that you take forward to make changes and to focus and refocus. And I'm saying in chat is like I'm so glad that the trainings are focused in a certain way that it works, right? It just happens that it doesn't happen in all areas, right? Like what I'm saying is like it may be happening in the community, which I kudos for you guys to like do this thing continuously and maybe not even thinking about it, right? Like, but when we're saying like if you are looking around you and those things are not happening, or you don't see that it is an issue, then maybe we're not thinking deep enough, right? Maybe we're not looking into the next step. And I love Amanda's comment, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think, and this is where, like, so I hear and I put out to the other masculine fighters out there. It's not just a y'all problem, and this goes back to all the DEI issues, DIB issues we look at. Is it is not on the onus of y'all collectively, y'all being my good Southern word there, to fix. It is our problem to fix.
Totally.
And identify. You guys can help identify the problem, but we can all help fix it.
I think like also like we put the perspective in like we have had a conversation with female knights, and we say, well, I am now the representation of something, but then the pressure that they have to endure to continue to be that expectation for other female fighters, it's a lot. Like it can take a toll of you, and I completely understand. Like I don't, I think I have this conversation with Sir Rifkin at one point. It's like I understand that pressure is on you. The reason that we decided to keep moving forward with what GirlSquad was about is to spread the pressure around and like making sure that it doesn't need you don't need to have a belt to showcase what you stand for, and to like support one another and support that type of different journeys that everybody's going through, right? And then you have female fighters who's like, I no longer fight, but I feel like I imposter syndrome, like all these things. It's like, but there's so many ways that we can continue having this conversation to normalize those things, right? To ensure that everybody still continue being part of the game, that we're making those baby steps, bigger steps, and all this direction into what the dream is about. Right?
Yeah, totally.
I love the steps into what the dream is about.
Yeah.
Oof, that just hit me a little hard, guys. I'm gonna need a minute on that one. Okay. So you've talked a little bit, and we're on time actually. So I'll give you this quote from actually one of our from Duchess Nisa's husband, Duke Sean. You talk a lot about the female knights being the example, and the Katie, you said that you're no longer on that knightly path. You're like, it's stupid. And frankly, as someone who's sort of on that path, I agree with you. His quote was always, "Don't be a knight, do knightly things." Right.
I love that.
The white belt's stupid. That's whatever. But you can be a knight without that.
All the knights are like, no, it's not dumb.
Right. The white belt's stupid. No, but it is just a belt. It is a symbol of a path. But you can be that knight without having that white belt. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, when I heard that from Sean, was something that stuck with me very early on in my path. That I don't care now. I'm here to have fun and fight and enjoy my day, and like that's why I fight.
Oh, his internet broke.
In rose tourneys, because that's not about me. Oh, there we go. Okay, because fighting's fun, but that's not why we're here, right? It's not. That's not the. It's not the dream we talk about.
That shift of and it worked for us in that way. We were in one plateau, and we were in that position that we are quitting now. We're not having fun. This is not what we signed up for.
Yeah.
And then we were like, well, no, this is what about having fun. We were like putting like this whole dream and pressure into like, I need to be perfect. I need to do this and do a certain way.
Yeah.
Take away the joy of what the game is about. Like you're pretending to be this person, you pretend to be Astrid of the Wolfpack and go to war and all these like different things. It was like, well, like I signed up for the fun of it, and how can I bring that fun back to myself and to others, right? Like, I think that the bigger reminder out there is like just have fun.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes I'll bring it back to kind of roller derby in a way. Like sometimes like when because I play pretty competitive roller derby. We're playing a tough team, and
she's so really good at it. Though.
Hold on, this is my surprise face.
Yeah, right.
I have known you for an hour now, and no, I get it. Yeah.
So I'm playing roller derby, and there's in roller derby there's 5 people on the track on your team. If any of them are getting worked up about how the other team, oh, we're getting lots of penalties or we're losing, whatever, I always go, we're not getting paid for this. Nobody's getting paid. We literally choose to do this. So if this is upsetting to us, why do we choose to do it? We do this for fun. We are going to play this game, and then we're going to go get a beer afterwards at the after party. And that's all it is, and that's the same for SCA, is like, it's supposed to be fun.
When did that stop?
And how do we retain that and make sure that and this is very important to me, the biggest takeaway is for me is that how do I make that fun for other people as well? And particularly for me, but not exclusively, is how do I make that fun for women, trans and non-binary people to participate in this game and to do this thing and not to be like, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Come to an Iron Rose. It's super fun.
Yeah.
It's like the only focus on an Iron Rose is for it to be fun. And that's it. And if everybody's having fun, tournament was a success. So
Yeah.
All
right, I'm going to do a couple of show plugs, and then we'll do some final thoughts, which I think we just hit the final thoughts. We had to beat that now, but we'll do it. All right, so coming up next on Kal-bardr's Corner, in 2 Sundays, I will be in Avocal, and I'll be joined by Aisha, who is an amazing scribal Laurel, one of the I think the newest Laurel up in Avocal, talking about alternative buffets, not buffets. No, we're not talking about Golden Corral. We're talking about alternative buffets, things that are the getting hit in the chest, but maybe not getting hit in the chest. So looking forward to sitting with her. We also have a Road to Retention episode that weekend as well. Still waiting for Remote to get that scheduled. She's actually at an event this weekend. We'll get that scheduled afterwards. If not, I'm going to steal it from her and do something from Avocal. Speaking of Avocal, it's an Avocal weekend for me. I'm also going to be hosting Avocal History immediately following the show on Buffets. I'll be set up with my gear already. If you are in Avocal or are going to be at the Avocal Crown Tournament and want to come talk about history with me, I'm going to be recording your stories. So this is an unofficial history thing. Come tell me your stories, tell me all about it, and we're going to edit it and send it out to your kingdoms because I love hearing your stories. And while I'm traveling, I might as well ingest the local knowledge. So that'll be Sunday. Look for posts on this channel about the where of that, but it'll be Sunday during the peerage meetings, and I'll be open for a couple hours either side, so we're not just during all the peerage meetings. So, but I was like, I'm bored because I'm not going to those meetings. I might as well have a show. So, and of course, you want to sponsor, support Kal-bardr's Corner and KK Productions and everything we support here. Look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. Join the grand wall of patrons. You also can look us up on Redbubble by searching KK Productions on Redbubble and buy stickers and cool stuff. Also, look up GirlSquad on Facebook. Links are in the chat, and I'll make sure I share the page out again. Amazing resources, amazing folks. They have stickers too, so look up their stickers. Get a GirlSquad sticker. I need a GirlSquad sticker. I'm just saying. I don't have a GirlSquad sticker. So, all right. So, final thoughts on GirlSquad and gender minority fighting. I am going to do this. I have none. Ladies, please give me your final thoughts.
Yeah, I guess. Final thoughts. So much pressure here.
Yeah.
My final thoughts. Just the same thing I've been reiterating. I guess like the whole show is just how important it is to make inclusive environments for not just women, trans, and non-binary people as well. In fighting practices, and it's something that has to change. We cannot continue on this path of having the most important people in our society, a society that literally that gives you a number on how important you are, an order of precedence. We cannot continue on this path of having all those people be men. It just is not. It can't continue. So we need to figure out how we individually can make inclusive spaces. What things can we change in ourselves? How can we critically look at ourselves to say, what can I do? What small thing can I do to make this change? Because I can tell you that for people who have done that, for male knights who have done that. It is so important and so appreciated by, I know I can only speak for me and Astrid because this is personal experience, but it is so important for us when people do that, and it is so appreciated.
I think that is worth recognizing that we're not the first, not the only ones who have thought about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I'm grateful to be able to be reached out by other female knights and female knights and in general other fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that having the opportunity to other people to connect, build those bridges from other kingdoms and your own kingdom and your own principality, I think that I'm hopeful after the war is that anybody who have been watching this can also connect with all their own communities and
Mm-hmm.
just reach out to them. I know that the challenge of like putting yourself forward, it's very hard, but I think that's the only way that we can continue having more involvement and
Mm-hmm.
reaching out bridges, like kind of ourselves, right? Like how we got to meet you and like
Mm-hmm.
being part of this conversation. And I'm glad that I also been participating for the West Kingdom roundtable with female knights about their own experiences and like all these things. So
Mm-hmm.
continue having those conversations happening on your own tables, and hopefully more people can just feel that love, right? Feel that inclusiveness, feel that belonging and joy of this game too.
Yeah.
There you go. I love that. Ladies, I want to thank you both for being awesome and just outspoken and supporting doing the Girl Squad thing. I think it's a great mentality to have, and I'm the word in awe is not correct, but I'm humbled by your awesomeness. So thank you both for joining me this morning. Thank you all out there for watching, tuning in every week and every other week if we're here. If you have a topic for Kal-bardr's Corner, look us up either through the page or find me on Facebook or find me at an event. I'd love to hear from you. But as of right now, folks, that is an empty mug, and it's been a day. Have a great day, everyone. But until next time, this has been Katie and Astrid and Cal in Kal-bardr's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.